Hello, folks. Welcome to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. I'm Rusty. She's Heather. We're the Bryants. And glad to be back with you. Hey, one quick thing before we jump into today's topic. If you're listening to this on the day that it comes out or the week that it comes out, which most of you do, we want to remind you that starting next week, February 1st, we begin our prayer challenge where we are praying for marriages all over the world. And if you would like to be a part of that and would like for us to add you to our prayer list, then you can go to our website at theredeemedmarriage.com. And up at the top, there's a banner that you can click on, and it'll take you to the February prayer challenge calendar. And you can go and choose a specific day and time during the month of February, and we'll pray for you. You can give us a specific prayer request because we like to pray for you and your spouse by name and also your specific prayer request. You don't have to do anything. You don't show up for anything. Mm-hmm. You're just telling us how we can pray for you. And you will join literally hundreds of others that have asked for prayer. We read every single one of them. We've already read them all. As they come in, we read them, and then we will be praying for them specifically. So obviously, we'll read them again on the day that we're praying for you. So anyway, we would love to join you in praying for your marriage. We have even had some pretty incredible comments over the last few weeks as people have said, "Hey, you prayed for my marriage, last year or 2 years ago, and we were in the middle of a divorce, and we have had the opportunity to reconcile, and things are better." And we just believe in the power of prayer. And so the more people that you can have praying for your marriage, and I know that a lot of times some of these things are secret, or you just, obviously you're not. You're not announcing all of your problems to the world. And so there's not a lot of people I know that you can trust to pray for you, but you can trust that we will pray for you, and we will lift that up for you, and then we'll leave it in God's hands and watch and pray that He can work a miracle.
Yeah,
and
I cannot believe that starts Saturday. February 1st is this coming up Saturday.
I know.
January always feels really, really long to me, like traditionally. But I don't know, February snuck up on me this year.
And February always just seems a little bit shorter, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Anyway, all right, we've got a great topic today. Hey, thank you guys for listening to our podcast. You obviously listen because you are listening right now. But if you've never actually hit the follow button, follow us, because that way, if you follow us through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is, you'll be reminded of our podcast each week. We don't miss a week. And, I don't know if people are like me, but I follow a lot of podcasts and I listen to them. And when I look and I'm like, the last time you did an episode was like in November, or I'm like, what? Like, is that really a podcast? No, this is a podcast. Every week we join you. So, hey, thank you for following us and keeping up with the Redeemed Marriage. All right, so today's topic, a really good one. We're going to talk about how our needs change. And I know that we've talked about this a little bit because we talk about how needs change over the course of your marriage. They change through time, they change through circumstances, but the needs as it relates to your marriage and what you need from your spouse and how that changes. I'm going to guess that from the time you were married, the day you were married, to wherever you are today, your needs have changed. But we also want to kind of zero in on how, if you've had some sort of trauma, betrayal in your marriage, that there's probably even a greater chance that things have changed and your needs have changed based on that. So that's where we're going today, and I think it's something that everybody will be able to relate to. So let's just talk for a minute. I think that when people when they talk about needs, I think it's pretty safe to say most people are aware of like love languages because it's just very common and people understand. And so we're not going to specifically talk about love languages, but we know that that's a great reference point because there's five love languages, and
they just kind of weave into what our needs have changed to.
Do you know Do you know the five love languages?
I
if
do.
I put you on the spot,
yes, and I also know that you will help me if I don't.
Maybe.
Okay, there is words of affirmation.
Check.
There is physical touch.
Check.
There is quality time.
Check.
There is acts of service.
Check.
And there are gifts.
You got it.
Thanks.
Hey, well done. Okay, so those are the five love languages, and most of your needs as a married couple, as a spouse, would fall somewhere in those categories,
or a combination of two.
Yeah. But you could probably think, oh, hey, I need this, and oh, it kind of falls in here, even if it's not like that exact word.
I understand.
Okay, so just real quick, when we got married, do you remember what your love language was?
Yikes. That's a lot of pressure. Gifts was
Gifts.
one of them. And the reason why I'm laughing is because now it's fifth on the list of five.
Gifts.
But it definitely was gifts and physical touch, maybe.
I think you're right. Yes,
Okay.
I'm positive you're right. So gifts and physical touch. That was 28 years ago. So
the people on YouTube got to watch our mental math and then our nod.
Yeah, we got it.
28. That's it.
Okay, so mine was, when we got married, mine was words of affirmation. And like, I don't even think there was anything that was a close second. Like, it was pretty, I mean, it was like, that was it.
Yeah.
Okay, so has yours changed? Has yours changed?
They've definitely changed. They've definitely changed.
Well, okay, let's just talk for a second, just in general. Like, why do you think these things change for people over time, regardless of like major trauma or betrayal? But just,
I firmly believe, and I know this to be true because it's happened with me, is that your love languages, and I don't want this whole thing to be about love languages, but our needs and what we desire to get from our spouse changes over time because of the season that you're in. You know, mine was very much physical touch at the beginning, but then as we had children and, you know, I had children touching me all day long, then I'm like, I need you to not touch me. I need somebody to not need me for a few minutes. So I know that there's, you know, seasons of life changes what your needs are. I think that your needs are based on what you feel like you might be lacking in. Because if you're getting fulfilled in one area, like let's say my words of affirmation were over the top, but I never was, you know, physical touch or was never here for quality time, then your need would change based on the fact that you feel depleted in that area. And so I think they change for those two reasons. Just the, you know, season of life that you're in and what you are receiving from your spouse on the reg. So, I also think that maturity changes those things. You know, I mean, I just even think about gifts. Like, I loved getting gifts and they made me feel loved. And then, you know, financially, maybe it's not a good time for like that season change. I don't know. I just think that those are probably the biggest two, is season of life and what you're getting, receiving, and not receiving from your spouse.
Well, and I think that this topic and this just in general can be a really frustrating part of marriage for a couple of reasons. One when you get married and that, what your spouse, whether you're good at it and good at giving, that about your spouse, and that's kind of what you fall in love with.
Yeah.
And then you try, like, hey, I know this is important to them, so I'm going to try to meet those needs. And you sort of get into this pattern or this rhythm of, all right, I know I can make her happy or make him happy by doing this. And then all of a sudden it changes. And you're like, wait a second, why did it change?
Yeah, and that's not who I fell in love with.
Yes, and that's not who I fell in love with. I think that's a big thing. And, so yes, it is very frustrating. But I also, because we have experienced this, like, I want to tell everybody that those changes are not necessarily a reflection. They're not a reflection on you, on your spouse. And I think that we can take it personally. Now, you also nailed another thing where you said, well, it changes over time, because if you're, not getting a need met, then all of a sudden that might become
a need. Yeah.
And like, I think that this is a perfect example of that, because when we got married, physical touch was a big, so gifts, which again, you've explained that, and gifts is just that one's a weird one to me.
Yeah. But it's not weird when it's your love language.
No,
because,
I know. Yeah.
Like, I can remember getting a gift made me feel valued because you took the time to pick something out. You took the time to remember me. And like, that could be a home run for you back in the day.
Yes.
It's like, come home with a new bracelet or a pair of earrings and I would be like, yes. But now that's just not as important to me. Yeah. So if that is yours, it's okay. But
yeah. No, I agree. And I love that you said that, because I think that people, when they hear that, it's not really, again, we're framing this around the love languages because people understand that terminology. But as far as gifts go, it's not like you're going out and buying a new pair of shoes and bringing it home and go, hey, this is your love language. Yeah. It's more of you thought of me, you took the time to go. So even if it's something small, like, hey, I stopped by and got you your favorite cup of coffee.
Yeah.
That is meeting that need.
Sure.
And so I love that you said that. And you still, you definitely are not one that's like, oh, I need gifts, or I need you to think and bring me something, go buy me flowers. That's not you anymore. But I do think, there are those times where, I've had to bring you something to school, and so I'll run by Starbucks and get you. And like, I know that just makes the connection of, oh, you thought of me.
That's right.
It's not the gift. It's you thought about me.
Yep.
And I'm grateful for that. But to go back to, so yours were gifts and physical touch. Now, we all know that whatever your love language is, that becomes very natural for you to show that to your spouse, whether they like it or need it or not.
Right.
So here, when I look back, I don't think that physical touch was very high on my list when we were married, but I don't think it was because I didn't like it. It was because that was your love language. So you did it all the time.
Right.
Like, you were always wanting, to be close and to, and I'm even talking non-sexual touch.
Sure.
Like, just touch in general and physical contact. And so I never, like, if I took a test for that, I wasn't depleted in that area, because that's how you wanted me to show you love. So that's how you showed me love. So physical touch was something that I just was like, nah, I'm good. Because we do it all the time. It's fine. But I think that's the other thing that can become frustrating to a spouse, because as your needs changed, then you stopped loving me
in that way,
in those ways.
That's right.
And so then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like, you used to do this.
Where did that go?
What happened? Well, it's because you changed, not because of something that I did.
Yeah. Well, and I can't speak to whether I changed just because of the betrayal, because of infidelity, because I stepped out of the boundaries of marriage. I don't know if that's the only reason why I changed, or if I just changed over time and people who don't have trauma and betrayal in their story change. I think that everybody changes, but I don't know if everybody changes as drastically as I did. And like, and we say all the time that we can't, like, we don't have letters behind our names. And so we can't say this is, proof that there's statistics that say we only have our story. And we can speak into that. But I also know that there's lots and lots of people listening that have our story as part of their story, and they're desperate to understand their spouse or themselves and why that's changed.
Well, I agree, but I do think, we say this all the time to couples that we're coaching, that when you have betrayal, it just becomes natural that everything you see through that lens of betrayal. And so things that would just be normal issues or problems or whatever that comes up in marriage, right or wrong, we tend to relate it back to the trauma. And so I think that that where we get a little bit sideways is that we start even thinking about our change and our changes in need, and they very well might be just because of time and circumstances and, maturity, all of those things. But because of a betrayal, that's just the way that we're going to naturally look at it.
Right.
So the answer and where we're going to move a little bit towards right now is that our betrayal definitely has affected our needs and what we need from each other. So just to give you a chance, because I think that people out there would say, oh yeah, somebody that's been betrayed, yeah, I can see if you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, you're like, yeah, my needs have changed, or they're greater now in certain areas because of the betrayal. Well, that makes sense. But like, even for you and you being the one that betrayed, how has that affected your needs from me and the things that you need from me?
Yeah. I was, thinking, I just had to jot down some things so I wouldn't forget. But I think that I have two big areas where I have changed completely different from who I was before and what I need from you in that area. And one of them is my confidence. I used to be very, 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 very confident. But I was confident in who I thought I was. Now my confidence in who God created me to be. And that was a very big shift for me when I fell in love with Jesus. So I was, the life of the party, and I didn't feel like I could have gone to a get together and never been in the same circle as you. I could have hung out with the girls the whole time and you hang out with the guys, or I didn't need to know you were there. I was fine on my own. But I'm not like that anymore. Even this morning at church, we were visiting with people, talking to people that we knew, and we came out into the commons area, and I had a moment of panic because I didn't know where you were. And so I just needed to be by you. And I think a lot of that is from the way I know people look at me. I don't feel that much at all at our current church, but just in the community in general, even though it's been, 13 years, I just know that people know my story. And so my confidence is just not like it used to be. My confidence is in the Lord and who He created me to be, but I still get very just nervous And so I definitely feel like you're my security blanket. I say that a lot. And so I just kind of need you there. So like when you put your arm around me in church, or when just when you kind of claim me as yours, that's very affirming to me, where I didn't need that before. Before I was like very confident in who I was.
Does that like, just in using the love language terminology, do you think that bleeds more into like physical touch still?
Quality time, probably.
Or words of affirmation, even though it's not necessarily
quality
words.
time.
It's just affirmation.
Yeah, affirmation and quality time. I said quality time because like I just need you to be there. But yeah, affirmation of you're good, I'm here, I love you, don't worry, I'm not leaving you. I mean, you said that so strongly 13 years ago in such a powerful way. Like, yes, you did this, but I'm choosing to stay. Then one would think 13 years later, why does that even, I mean, like, he stayed 13 years ago in the worst of the worst. Like, why would you even entertain that idea of him not being there? But it just still is something that I need, is just knowing that you're there, affirming me that we're good, and you're not going anywhere. Yeah. So, and I would have thought words of affirmation probably was very low on my scale when we first got married. So I definitely think that is one of them. A big swing from after betrayal. From before betrayal to after betrayal. The other one is physical touch. It used to be probably my number one or two. I don't remember which one was first, gifts or physical touch. But, and of course, when you first get married, everybody's, I would think, is physical touch, because especially if you were like us and you had saved yourself for marriage, then, you can't get enough of each other. And that's how it's supposed to be. And I think for me, probably, physical touch has changed for me, more drastically because of betrayal. I think that normally in somebody who did not, commit adultery, I still think that it probably changes over time, because you do go, I mean, adultery for us was after we had babies, but I can remember like that baby season of like, oh my gosh, this child has needed me all day long. I need you to not touch me, and that was before betrayal. So I know that it kind of changed before even the betrayal. But for me, and this is going to be different for everybody, because if you're a man, maybe it's different. If you're a woman, maybe you can, understand what I'm saying, or maybe you're listening and your wife was the one. I don't know your story, but for me, physical touch has become very different, because that's what the man was attracted to. And so I've really had to fight the dirtiness of what I did, because it was a physical act. And so for me, I feel so much more loved by just words or actions, or just laying on the couch together and being together, than I do in that physical act. Because it was tainted. Now, do I think that God redeemed that? Absolutely. Because if he hadn't redeemed it, then we wouldn't be able to be intimate at all. And this is just me talking way before you even talk about the hurt of physical touch. I mean, that's just my hurt in it. And so did God redeem that? And is he restoring that? Yes. But is it a great need of mine? No. And I definitely think that is because of betrayal. I don't think that somebody would have jumped that extreme without going through the trauma of infidelity.
I think that's important the reason why we do share our story is because I think that there's a lot of people that probably feel everybody's different, but there's also people that are just wrestling with, hey, I have feelings like this, but I can't really share that with my spouse. I don't know how to share that with my spouse. And like, that's hard. Like, I mean, it's hard for me to hear that too, because that was such a big part of who you were, is, you know, the physical touch, just like, I want to be close to you. And now it's like, I want to be close to you, but I want to be close to you in a different way. And so for me to have to go, well, that all changed because of something that you did.
Right.
And so that becomes really hard. But at the same time, I'm very sympathetic to it, because I'm like, well, I have all these hurts and stuff too. And it's not, you know, people out there are like, well, she did it, you know, it's her fault. But I have feelings of compassion of like, okay, well, I have these hurts because of what happened. And I know you have these hurts too, regardless of
who did it,
and that it was, you know, that you made those choices. It's still real. And so if we're going to be a true team and we're going to learn how to work through these hard issues for the rest of our marriage, then we have to understand each other, and we have to, you know, feel that compassion for each other. So I think for me, words of affirmation has always been, but I think that the affirmation has changed a lot. Like when we first got married and even dating, I just liked, because I'm a guy, I think most guys, words of affirmation is way at the top of their list. But it's because we just want somebody to tell us how great we are.
Yeah.
Like, I just always needed you to just say, oh, you're the best. Like, you know, I think you're great. You do this great. You love me well here. You do this so great. And that hasn't changed. But I think the way that it's changed is almost in the same way that your affirmation, like, you need affirmation that I'm not going to leave you, that I'm still with you. And I think that there's such a, like, my worth was so crushed. Like, it was like you chose somebody else over me. And so because of that, like, I need mounds and mounds of it. And again, look, this is, I'm sharing this from an immature side of things, because in reality, I am very confident in who I am in Christ.
Right.
But when I'm talking about just needs in a marriage, that's where I'm going with this. So I don't want people to go, oh my gosh, Heather's got to,
you aren't. Yeah.
And Heather's got to always be telling him how great he is. It's not that.
Well,
but
just to give an example of, I mean, I've said this before, but it's so important that our cups need to be filled up with our relationship with the Lord.
Right.
But there is nothing wrong with overflow.
Yeah.
And and that's what you're speaking to, that you need that to overflow. And when you do, you overflow to me and to other people.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that about the cup, because I was thinking about how when betrayal has happened, you know, if somebody can just kind of picture, let's just go with the love languages thing, because that's what people understand. There's 5 cups. Let's just say there's 5 cups, and some of those cups, we have a greater need of being filled. And I think what happens when there's betrayal is that certain cups just have leaks in them now and holes in them now. And so, you know, look, from a spiritual standpoint, God can completely fill those up and he can plug those holes, and you don't need any, but we're talking about just journeying through life together with your spouse. And so for words of affirmation, there's just some damage to that cup. And because of that, if I go long periods of time without, you know, having that from you and hearing that from you, then that cup just seems to deplete faster because of the damage that's been done.
Yeah.
And so it requires more effort to continually keep that overflowing.
Yeah.
And so even look, physical touch, like I said, it was never really one of my things because you were always wanting, to touch. You just wanted to be close. You wanted to touch, whether it was sexual or non-sexual or, physical touch. And that all changed. And so that's a wound, and it's a wound for me because I'm like, well, it changed because you did that with somebody else, and that's not fair. Now, I could go there over and over and over, but part of the reason why I don't go there is because you do recognize that. And so you are you do such a good job of going, I'm going to meet your need there because I know how much damage I did. But I think where the change and the shift is, the non-sexual touch actually means something to me now, and it probably never did before, because it's your way of affirming with an area of your life that is really damaged. And so, for instance, like this morning, you even reached over in church, and because you don't do this very often anymore, you used to do it all the time, but you reached over and you put your hand on my leg, and we kind of laughed because your hand was sweaty and you had lotion on it and all that kind of stuff. And we laughed about it in church. But like that is like things like that are now at the very top of my needs, whereas before they never were. And the hard part is that that's not a need of yours anymore and so there's the friction and there's the conflict. And, to take it a step further to intimacy, one of the things that I am very confident in is that anytime I ask you for intimacy, and intimacy is very different for me now because it is a connection. No matter what it is physically, like it is a connection, and it is now much more of a emotional and spiritual thing for me, where I just go, this is as close as I can be to you, and I need to be close to you. Used to, I think it was just an act, and it was fun.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. We had a great time. We were married. You're allowed to do that. But now it's this emotional connection. And the thing that's so great about you is, like I mean this. If I were to ask you 100 times, you would say 100 times yes, every single time. The problem is that confidence in me, there's always, even though I know 100 out of 100, there's always this thought of rejection. If I were to ever get rejected in that area, like I don't know what it would do. Like it would be so crushing to me. So you people that are listening, you have to understand that. Like it's not, and I also don't think, and you can speak into this, like I don't think that you feel this massive obligation to fulfill that need because of what you did. It's just that we understand each other. But when it comes to like initiation, I do initiate, but not near as much. Like used to, it was probably 90% me.
Yeah.
Now it's 90% you. And it's because there's this, when you do that, that's my love, that's my affirmation.
Yeah.
And so it hits the affirmation, it hits the physical touch, it fits the connection, which ultimately is quality time.
Sure.
Quality time used to be nothing. I didn't care. You could go do your thing. I could go do my thing. I would rather be with you all the time now. And it's not because I want to check up on you or make sure you're not doing. It's like, I don't want to be with anybody else. Like we've been through everything that you could possibly go through in marriage: infidelity, cancer, loss of children. We had miscarriages, just financial everything, and like I'm like I just want to be with you. Like you're the person that understands and gets me, and the damage that was done, trust. I don't trust other people as much as I used to, but I trust you.
Yeah.
And so I'd just rather be with you. And that's where quality time comes in. Okay. That was a whole lot. That was a lot of rambling. But I think that the biggest thing to understand here is we shift needs as you go through your marriage. But when something damaging happens, like I do know that it becomes this drastic change that nobody understands, and nobody can, and then it's like, oh, well, this changed because of what you did, and hey, you can't even love me like this anymore because of this, and so all of a sudden it has to become. I'm reading this book right now, and the word they're using is usness, and I know we say me becoming we, and it's this usness of, all right, well, let's understand each other. I need to understand why you feel that way. And if I don't, then I can't help to meet that need. And in the same way, if you don't understand why I feel all these feelings, then you can't help to meet my needs. And so we just then go through this life, and we go through the rest of life, and the cycle is, well, you're not meeting my needs, so I slowly get mad and bitter. And we can't talk about it because if I bring it up, then it's just going to cause this big, huge argument. And so it really just becomes, we have to journey, warts and all. We have to journey through this life together and figure each other out.
Yep.
All right. Do you want the last word?
No, I just wanted to say that you may be listening to this and think that's not how I feel. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like yours may be completely different. If you've been through betrayal or trauma, then your needs may be completely different than what we spoke into. But you still have to have a conversation with your spouse and be honest about those needs and how they've changed so that y'all can begin to meet each other's needs in a real way instead of just, not speaking into it and going through life without those needs being met.
That's great. This is the last thing, and I'm going to try not to make this long, but I talked to somebody this past week, and I was trying to describe to him how his wife may have changed because, like, acts of service, I think used to be something that was really big, and now because of his betrayal, she doesn't really care about acts of service anymore. So I guess to sum all of this up, this is what you need to understand. If acts of service were a big deal, but then there was betrayal, well, all of a sudden, guess what? She probably doesn't care that you're doing the dishes, or she probably doesn't care if you help doing the laundry as much as she needs you to love her and show her that you're not leaving, that you choose her over and over again, that you want to be with her, the non-sexual touch, the affirmation, like those things all of a sudden become way more important than taking out the trash.
Right.
Now, you still need to do those things, but they're not going to make her feel the same way that they may have made her feel before. And so all of this, you just need to, like Heather was saying, your circumstance might not be exactly like ours. Your feelings and your love languages may not be the same, but recognize that's the foundation behind what we're talking about, is that all of a sudden some things are just not as important anymore, and other things become much more important. And I think you're like that because acts of service used to be a big deal, and it still is. You like it when I do that, but it used to be much bigger deal. But now it's like, no, like you don't have to do the laundry, you don't have to do the dishes. Those are all great. I just need to know that you're not going anywhere, and those things don't really say that.
Right.
As much as other things.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I hope that summed things up just a little bit. All right. Hey, guys, thanks for listening. Love spending our time with you, and I hope you guys have a great week. Sign up for our February prayer challenge if you haven't done that already. We'd be honored to pray for you. Till next time,
Peace.
Peace.